Welcome to SYNC-O-WICZ, hosted by the fearless Linda SYNC-O-WICZ. She's syncing you up with the latest in election integrity, from breaking headlines to critical updates you won't hear anywhere else. With Linda, it's facts first as she leads the fight for one vote for one legal voter. Stay informed, stay empowered. Let's jump in.
Hi, and welcome to SYNC-O-WICZ. I'm Linda SYNC-O-WICZ. I'm the founder and CEO of Fight Voter Fraud. We want to thank everyone who's watching us on OBBM Network TV, Rumble, YouTube, Spotify, and all our other social platforms. So this week, our guest is Phani Mantravadi from Check My Vote. We'll be speaking to him very shortly. The states we're going to be discussing: California, Connecticut, Iowa, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. Then we'll go to our election terms, our election trivia, national news, our vote notes, which is always a little bit of a longer segment that you'll be able to click on the link and read the rest of the story. Then we go to international. And of course, as always, my final thoughts, which are unscripted. So let's go right now to our special guest this week, Phani. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you, Linda. How are you?
Fantastic. And you have been extremely busy with Check My Vote, and you've had a whole lot of things going on. So you want to tell the audience what you've been doing?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So Detroit 2020 project, as we call it, began August of last year. I think it's probably a year to the day today. But Patty McMurray from Gateway Pundit called that day saying that she was talking to Yehuda Miller, who is from New Jersey, who obtained the entire absentee ballot envelopes. You have the ballot applications, and you have the poll books and the statements of votes cast, everything relating to the 2020 election from the city of Detroit. So that was pretty huge, but obviously that's about 1 million documents, scanned copies as well as physical. And, the scanned copies, luckily we had like electronic scan copies, so we didn't have to manually scan all that. But they were all provided to me to kind of take a look at and see what we can do to identify what problems there are or there were in the 2020, December election. So first order of business was to really organize those documents. It's obviously a huge number. And the way they scanned the envelopes were like 3 per A4 size letter sheet, like with 3 of them, 1, 2, 3. And they were also not orientated properly. Like some pages, they scanned 3. Some of them, they scanned like 2 of them, but they were kind of vertical instead of 3, one on top of each other, like stacked like that, to see. So they were all over the place. Orientation was all over the place. So first job was to kind of split them properly so that every file is one envelope pretty much. And then basically remove the duplicates, because now we saw at first glance, just kind of, poking around the files we got, that some of the envelopes were just scanned twice. But then there are also people who voted twice. So you'd see the same name and address, but the signature is slightly different and the ballot number is different. So we said we'd have to transcribe all of this data into the system so we can actually do a cross-referencing of the name and address on the envelope sticker versus what's in the qualified voter file. So I built a system.
I was going to say, how long did it take to just unscramble the mess? Let alone count everything, but unscrambling.
Yeah, that first phase was absolutely to unscramble and sequence them properly. And that took about August. I got the files. I started writing code. I'm an IT guy, right? I wrote a code to about 2 months it took to at least to get the stuff sequenced up properly and save in a secure location, 1 file per image. And then,
so all they really had to do was scan 1 at a time. Had they only scanned 1, it would have saved 2.5 months of work, because
actually I wouldn't say 2.5 months of work just to sequence them. It was 2.5 months to sequence them as well as create a data entry template. If your question was to just find out how much time it took to just sequence them, it was probably about 3-4 weeks. So you're right. If they had given us just 1 envelope per page, it would have just been 3-4 weeks. But then I wouldn't go so far as saying that it would have been more expensive, because they charged the FOIA request per scan. So it was 10 cents or something per page. So it actually benefited us financially. I mean, at least Yehuda, he paid for all this, right? So it saved him funds because if they scan 3 in 1 page, the cost is 1/3 because it's charged per scan. So that wasn't the biggest problem. The biggest problem was, how sloppy it was. Like there were 134 absentee vote counting boards in Detroit in 2020, and we got 134 files, meaning AVCB 1, 2, 3, 4, and sometimes what would happen is files from AVCB 28 were kind of commingled with the files in AVCB 25, so they were not sorted properly. So you really had these accounts wrong in the sense, like they tell us, like in the manifest, once they gave the files to Yehuda, they said, okay, AVCB 25 has 2,500 envelopes. I'm just throwing out a number. But in reality, there were not that many, because when we actually look at them, we see there were a bunch of them were AVCB 28. They got just added in here. So, numbers are off from what they said they gave us versus what they gave us. But we could only find all of that after actually transcribing all of that data into a template I built in CMV, in Check My Vote.
I was going to say, do you think it may have been intentional, or is it just total and complete incompetence?
I'd lean more towards saying incompetence, because I don't have proof or any evidence to say that it's criminal, because I don't want to accuse someone without having any basis in fact. So from the looks of it, it looks very slopshoddy. It's like they just threw something together and gave it to Yehuda. But then the bigger concern, if you even think about it as incompetence, well, if these are the people running our elections, such incompetence and such slopshoddiness, how can you trust your elections? I mean,
Right.
you expect some level of professionalism when you're treating votes as sacred. Every one of our votes is sacred, and they have to be treated as such. You can't just
Right.
throw them around and say.
And your Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson, won't even allow your legislators to see the training books that your election officials have. So I'm guessing that book probably has a lot of blank pages.
Oh, well, blank pages, or actually it has got directions and rules that have been made up per her whim, completely circumventing the legislature. In fact, our House Election Integrity Committee chair, Representative Rochelle Smith, asked for those election manuals precisely about a year or 2 years ago. But oh goodness, Jocelyn Benson wouldn't give them away, saying there's a security issue. How can there be security issue with a manual? There is no personal information inside a manual. It's basically that these rules were just made up.
Yep.
One of them was basically, match the signature. She relaxed the rules for signature matching. I mean, when you're counting absentee ballots, the only one thing that you can use to establish the identity of the person who filled a ballot is the signature. The person isn't there in front of you, right? So even that single control, if you will, of establishing identity of the person who filled the ballot versus who is in the voter rolls is the signature. And she relaxed the rules around that, saying, hey, you know what? A presumption of validity is what she called it. Presumption of validity. You could have a chicken scratch, which is absolutely nothing like what was written in the application to vote or whatever when they registered to vote, and just count it. All votes shall be counted is what she was saying in 2020. So we actually saw a lot of that while doing this project. Essentially, everything we've read in the news, or that we've kind of seen or heard sound bites all through these years about signature matching, was live. We were actually seeing this, because when we entered the data about an envelope, name and address, and then we find the application related to it, because everybody had to first apply for an absentee ballot back in 2020.
Right.
There was no permanent absentee, so the signature had to match between the app and the ballot. So they don't match. So obviously you're seeing essentially what we were hearing all these years ago, and it was kind of, in a way, very exciting, but at the same time infuriating to see all of this. And as we were working through this project, the Detroit 2020, but the big report went out. Multiple reports. We've released multiple reports on our findings, and the project is still going on because we're looking at poll books and all these other things now. But a lot of other people have picked up our story. Steve Bannon also talked about that about a month ago, and James O'Keefe actually picked it up too yesterday, and he kind of talked about that and made a big video about knocking on doors of people who we identified as suspect because their signatures didn't match. They kind of signed 2 ballots. Actually, you'd see, like, if you see the video, you'll see that there were people who had 2 ballots in 2020. One of them signature is completely different than the other.
I'm surprised you didn't see paw prints from cats and dogs.
Yeah, yeah,
So this is Michigan that we're talking about. So the
yeah.
big thing you did with Michigan, I guess you had some stuff on Detroit specifically.
Yeah, that is exactly what it is. The project for Detroit 2020 is actually about Detroit, because what Yehuda got was the entire tranche of documents from Detroit, city of Detroit. So this whole project is about Detroit. We don't have the documents for entire Michigan. That would have been many more million, five
Oh,
million.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But we only have about 1 million, which is including absentee ballots and the ballot images, ballot envelope images, application images, and the poll book images. So it's only Detroit. Yeah.
Wow. So out of those, was it 26,000 you found were not legal?
Yes. So the election of 2020, Detroit certified 174,300 plus votes as absentee, 174,300. So working backwards from that number now, if you look at the number of envelopes that were received by Yehuda as part of this FOIA request, well, obviously you'd expect 174,300 plus envelopes, right? Because every ballot should come in an envelope. There's actually a law that says you can't have a ballot without an envelope if you're voting absentee. So we got only 155,000 envelopes. So we were short by about 19,000 at the get-go. And where are the 19,000? Nobody knows. And the second thing is that the QVF, we call it the QVF in Michigan, it's the qualified voter file, of December 2020, obviously should contain the history from the November 3rd, 2020 election, right? Like, it's been a month and they have 1 week to upload all their vote histories into the qualified voter file after the election of November 3rd. So November 10th, all vote history should have been uploaded to the statewide voter file. So December was the file we looked at, and then we kind of used December as our basis for analysis. And the December 1st voter file histories, it shows only 167,000 absentee votes. So you're short by 7,000 there with the QVF. So the numbers are all over the place, as you can tell. The QVF says 167,000 people voted. They certified 174,300. And then you have the envelopes, which are only 156,000, 155,000. And then we also got ballots, which were also like, I think, I don't remember the number, but we also got the ballots and we counted them. They were also way off, really. They were nowhere near the 174,000 numbers. So, and some of them were actually duplicates. They scanned the same ballot twice and gave it to Yehuda, which means we have to deduplicate them, You can't just take account of the files we got, because you never know if the same thing was copied twice just to pad the number up and given to him, right? So that's where all of our manual intense work is. And we have 100 plus volunteers using the Check My Vote interface to visually look at every envelope, transcribe the data from there, visually look at the app, transcribe it from there, and also do a second, third, fourth level of verification, meaning it's dual key, because a person could make a mistake. So a second person could look at the work from the first person and then validate the work of the first person. So we absolutely have the name and the address typed correctly. So then we can match with the QVF. And when we did that, we found that 26,000 plus votes are recorded as having voted in the QVF as absentee in November 3rd, 2020, but they do not have an envelope. How does it show in the voter file of December 2020 that they voted absentee, but they don't have an envelope? And then obviously we were short by 19,000 at the get-go, which gets added to that number. So 26,000 is where we landed at. And that's what the Gateway Pundit report talks about as well.
Oh, so I was going to say, without having those envelopes, I mean, it takes a long time when you're, just instead of stuffing them, the ones that are made up, you need to just push them through, right?
Oh yeah, the envelopes
so
are
that's
important.
Why they didn't have the envelopes, is because it took too much time.
Oh yes.
I mean, it is so unfortunate that they can't get their act together and just being able to vote and have their votes counted when you have so many things going on in the state of Michigan, let alone Detroit, with that. And, I'm sure you didn't get a chance to check whether they were actually U.S. citizens or whether they were alive or any of that. So this is just going off of what Michigan certified. And the key to this, I guess, is that you said December 17th, I think, is usually the date that they have to have the certified numbers in front of Congress for the elections. So I'm sure if you check the voter rolls in January of 2021, there's going to be stuff that's totally different
Oh, yes.
than what you found on the December ones, because that's what happens here in Connecticut. Nothing ever matches at all. They
Yes.
change things every other month from the certification. You are doing a fantastic job with your organization and your Check My Vote. So you also have how many states up so that people can check their own voter information? You've got
Yes, Linda. There is 5 states live in right now: Michigan, Ohio, Tennessee, West Virginia, and Rhode Island. But Tennessee data is way behind. It's like 1 year behind. It's so expensive to get voter rolls there. It's like
oh yeah.
$4,500 per snapshot, and I don't have that kind of funds to purchase those voter rolls. But the other states, Ohio provides it for free, so I just get it from their SOS site and then load it up into Check My Vote. And Michigan, I pay them. It's not too much to pay, but Rhode Island and West Virginia, there's wonderful groups out there that actually coordinate the files and pass them along to me, and I load them up.
Rhode Island's pretty inexpensive. You get the first 3 for nothing, and then it's only $25.
Yes, exactly. I did put my subscription in, and it's very nice, And I also started getting Vermont now, which may launch Check My Vote for Vermont very soon, as soon as I free up from some of the work that I'm currently got my hands in.
And you have been just doing so much. So if people want to reach out to you, your website is Check My Vote. And do you have an email that you want people to know?
Email is Phani@checkmyvote.org. Phani@checkmyvote.org.
All right. Well, Bonnie, thank you so much for coming on. We're going to have you on again in the near future to get us updated on the rest of the work that you've been doing. You've been doing a fantastic job. So thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you, Linda. Thank you for having me on.
All right, we're going to go to a quick break and we'll be right back.
At Fight Voter Fraud, we work to ensure every legal vote is counted, and no unlawful vote ever diminishes the voice of we the people. We're fighting for you in courtrooms and communities nationwide to protect transparency, accountability, and fairness in every election. Our mission is simple: one vote for one legal voter. This is our country. This is our vote. Let's protect it together.
Hi, I'm Linda SYNC-O-WICZ from SYNC-O-WICZ, and I'm here to tell you about an exciting new series that we have just added called SYNC-O-WICZ Presents Candidate Spotlight. And this is open to any candidate, any party, anywhere in the country that wants to have a 20-minute interview. So you can talk about yourself, your platform, your campaign, and we'll help you get it out there. So give us a call, send us an email, or visit our website. Thank you. Hi, and welcome back to SYNC-O-WICZ. I'm Linda SYNC-O-WICZ. Again, I'm the founder and CEO of Fight Voter Fraud. And I got to thank Phani. He is incredible with the amount of information and the amount of work that he has been doing with election integrity. So yay, Phani. All right, so now we're going to go to California. California, this is from Courthouse News Service on August 7th. California secures temporary halt to county voter ID law. Shasta County voters in June passed a measure that would have required ID and largely eliminate vote by mail and early voting. Obviously, it's something positive. So in California, you cannot have that happen because they have to cheat. So Shasta County, California officials on Friday stopped the enforcement of the Shasta County ballot measure that would have required people to show a photo ID at the polls. God forbid you actually prove it's you. The decision came a day after 2 Sacramento County judges also ruled for the state over a November ballot measure that would have imposed voter ID. Oh my goodness. How horrific, right? Oh my goodness. So Shasta County's Measure B, approved by about 55% of the voters in June, required government-issued identification to register and vote, largely eliminated vote by mail and early voting, mandated hand-counted ballots, and created a voter registration system separate from the state. Kudos to them. I mean, Shasta County, we've heard about this in the past, that they were doing things above and beyond for election integrity. And of course, the state of California has to step in and say, nope, nope, we need the illegals voting. We need as many people as possible that are not qualified to vote so your election officials and everybody else can stay in office. Attorney General Rob Bonta argued the county's charter status allowed some local laws to conflict with state law, but not election law. California prohibits photo ID requirements at the polls and guarantees access to vote by mail and early voting. So because of the rest of the state is totally messed up, Shasta County has to do it just like slipshod that the rest of the state is doing the voter integrity. Unbelievable. Now, you guys in California, you have to vote for Michael Gates for your attorney general. He will turn this around. He will eliminate California from being one of the biggest jokes for voting in U.S. history. You guys are so bad. I don't even need to read the rest of this. Shasta County should be the one that should be up there that everybody else in California and people across the country should follow. But nope, we're talking California. That was a pretty long story. That was a bunch of pages I printed out on that one. So going from one coast to another, we are now going to talk about Connecticut. This is a press release from Peter Lamage. He is a candidate for the Secretary of State here in Connecticut for 2026. This is dated August 10th. Secretary of State Thomas admits errors that disenfranchised voters and cost taxpayer thousands. But of course, it's Connecticut. Peter Lamage, Republican candidate for Secretary of State, issued the following statement regarding Secretary Stephanie Thomas's admission of errors that led to the Connecticut Supreme Court's intervention. Quote, despite serving 4 years as Connecticut's chief election official, Secretary Thomas just admitted her incompetence once again. She issued defective petition forms to candidates in Connecticut. She gave wrong legal guidance to all 169 towns. No surprise there. 2 candidates almost got thrown off the ballot because of her mistakes. The Supreme Court had to stop everything for an emergency hearing. Had the court not taken the extraordinary step of ordering a new primary, thousands of Enfield Democrats would have been silenced. Now, Enfield taxpayers are stuck with the bill for reprinting her blundered ballots. State Representative Santella has asked that the Secretary of State's office reimburse his town for this needless expense. I concur. Now creating needless costs for taxpayers is a bipartisan concern. Here's the bottom line. In the real world, when you fail badly, you get fired. In Hartford, you get a hearing where you promise to educate the legislators investigating you. Seems the Secretary of State's office needs to educate itself first. After 4 years in office, this is sadly just the latest lapse from Thomas's office. And it kind of continues on with this, that Connecticut families deserve better, etc. People in Connecticut, Peter Lamage for your Secretary of State this November. We have had 4 years of Secretary Thomas, who, back before she was elected in a debate, actually said that fraud was acceptable. Later on in the program, we're going to have another story on Connecticut, on how wonderful our Secretary of State is here in the state of Connecticut. I'm being facetious. She's not. Trust me, she's not. All right. So again, Peter Lamage is running for Secretary of State. He is a constitutional attorney. Oh, from one coast to another. So let's like smack dab right in the middle of the United States. Now we're going to talk about Iowa. This is from the Gazette on August 8th, 2026. Uh-oh. This is an editorial, and I've got my wah-wahs up there. So all of you Democrats and far-left liberals, socialists, and communists, here you go. You got somebody whining for you, by the way. So reviving signature checks on ballots is a bad idea. Even in the headline, this is ridiculous. So again, this is an editorial. A guessing game would determine whether Iowans can request and cast an absentee ballot if the Iowa Republicans and the Republican National Committee get their way. The state and national GOP are going to court to overturn an injunction that prohibits enforcing a provision in a 2017 Republican-backed voting bill. In other words, nobody else on the other side had any common sense, okay? It directs county election staff to compare signatures on absentee ballot request forms and on absentee ballots with voter signatures kept on file. Oh my goodness. Again, a state that should be making sure it's actually the voter. If the signature doesn't match, county election officials could dispute a ballot request form requiring a new application, or dispute an absentee ballot received by the county. This is where the fraud comes in, people. This is where fraud is. The easiest fraud of all for elections is with the absentee ballots. Now, they don't even want any signature matches. And oh, God forbid, if a county election officials actually notices that they don't match, they don't want it contested? Unbelievable. Here's a box. Here's a box of tissues for you people. With a tight absentee voting period required by Republicans, a tight period. We shouldn't even have absentee ballots. But anyway, a voter could run out of time to request another ballot and return it to the county auditor's office. You mean if they actually find out that you weren't the one who signed it? Wouldn't you want to know if somebody is signing a ballot and it's not you that requested it? We got to forget about that. As for cast ballots, voters can authenticate them at the auditor's office. It's a frustrating process for voters who did nothing wrong. You know, I mean, it's just, yeah, Iowa, get your act together. Really? Wow. Okay. Of course, I have no personal opinions on anything. Now we're going to talk about Pennsylvania. This is from the Northeast Times from August 9th, 2026. Pennsylvania's top election official disputes federal voter roll allegations. Pennsylvania's Secretary of State, Al Schmidt, appeared on 6 ABC's Sunday program to address claims from the Trump administration and the Department of Homeland Security that thousands of non-citizens are registered to vote in Pennsylvania and other states. Host Tamala Edwards led the interview. It's covered by a range of active election integrity disputes between Harrisburg and Washington. The segment also addressed Pennsylvania's ongoing lawsuit against the Trump administration. At issue is a federal demand that the state hand over personal information belonging to participants in Pennsylvania's anti-poverty program, according to 6 ABC. I mean, come on, Pennsylvania. Get your act together. I mean, it is just so ridiculous. So ridiculous. Ooh, what color was that state? Ooh, blue. Now we're going to Wisconsin. Wisconsin, this is from WTMJ4 NBC News from August 7th. What Wisconsin leaders in a blue city and a red county say about election integrity. So the partisan divide grows among voters. With days to go until Wisconsin's August primary, a new poll reveals a stark partisan divide in voter confidence. and the election workers are at the center of it, are pushing back. A recent bipartisan Democracy Defense Project poll found that 91% of Wisconsin's Democrats say they are very happy or somewhat confident votes will accurately cast and counted this November. How many? Of course, this is the Democrats. 91% of the Democrats. We know why. You know why. And amongst Republicans, the number drops to 46%. Even those 46% must not be watching real TV and finding out what's really going on. The same poll asked residents whether election workers and officials are important community volunteers who count votes fairly and need to do their jobs without interference, or whether they are more partisan than they would have believed and need to be monitored so they don't try to influence elections. Among Republicans, 71% concluded election workers are more partisan and should be monitored. Of course. Among Democrats, 93% viewed them as important volunteers. Notice how they didn't put in there for the Democrats that they should be monitored. They only put one for Republicans, and then it's a totally different question for the Democrats. I mean, this is just crazy. The Democracy Defense Project poll also found sharp divisions on specific election concerns. Among Republicans, 88% said they were very concerned about non-citizen voting, compared to 2% of Democrats. Is this for real? 2% of Democrats. They must not really have been Democrats, those 2%. I mean, this is just nuts. 78% they were very concerned, this is among Democrats, about the deployment of the National Guard or ICE at polling places, compared with 5% of Republicans. Of course, the Democrats are concerned. That's their voting base. The illegals. Really? Come on, people. Open up your eyes to what is going on. Really? Of course, Republicans aren't concerned because we want them there. Then we can have fair voting. Oh, what color was this state again? Oh my goodness. All right, so let's go on to our election term of the week. Political radicalization. And this is from the Baltimore Beat on August 11th, 2026. Political radicalization, say that 3 times fast, damn. When individuals or groups seek to obtain power or to disrupt the existing power base by promoting philosophies that are divergent and in direct opposition to the status quo. Can you say communism? Okay. In which month were the most presidents born? This is your election trivia question of the week from Reader's Digest. We're going to go to a quick break and we'll be right back.
We need your help to ensure one vote for one legal voter. Join Fight Voter Fraud. Request training, get the potential double-registered, double voter data for your town, and donate to support the fight. Visit fightvoterfraud.org, because election integrity starts with you.
Hi, I'm Linda SYNC-O-WICZ. I'm the founder and CEO of Fight Voter Fraud. We are launching Operation Verify Voters 2026, and we want to get everyone involved in every single state because you can make a difference. We will be able to train you. It doesn't take that long for the training. It's very, very simple because you know the people on your street, in your neighborhood who have moved or died. We want to make sure that the voter rolls are clean. We're going to show you how to do it. Go to our website, fightvoterfraud.org, or scan the QR code and we'll show you how. Thank you. Hi, and welcome back to SYNC-O-WICZ. When I left you last, we had our election trivia question of the week, which is, in which month were most presidents born? Those of you who chose October are correct. It's October. All right, so now we have our national news, and this is from the Connecticut Centennial from August 3rd, 2026. It's called Unpacking the Curious Case of Melissa Ramirez with Reese on the Radio. Something is deeply wrong in Connecticut when an illegal alien kills a police officer and a mother of three in a drunken crash. The arrest warrant attaches a U.S. citizen's driver's license and a New Britain address to her. Officials scramble to declare the resulting questions, quote, misinformation, and the people who simply read the paperwork get painted as the villains. In a recent CDM Clips discussion, L. Todd Wood sat down with Reese on the radio to unpack exactly this, quote, curious case of Melissa Esperanzas Ramirez Ramiro. The conversation zeroed in on the facts the Lamont administration and its media allies would rather you stop examining: an illegal alien driver, a fatal DUI, a sworn affidavit riddled with identity mismatches, and a state that treats verification as optional until the political heat gets too high. Here's an abridged version of what happened. On July 13, 2026, around 2:45 a.m., a Jeep Compass driven by 27-year-old Melissa Esperanzas Ramirez Ramiro of Stamford crossed the double line on Sugar Hollow Road in Danbury and slammed head-on into a Harley-Davidson. Off-duty Bridgeport police officer Cooper Whiteside, 38, and Britley Islami, 34, a mother of three, died at the scene. Ramirez's blood alcohol content was 0.14, nearly twice the legal limit. She also tested positive for cannabis. Empty Corona bottles and a THC vape were in the vehicle. She was not a hit and run. She was right there. She was injured and later charged with 2 counts of second-degree manslaughter with a motor vehicle, DUI, and related offenses. The Department of Homeland Security was clear. Melissa Esperanzas Ramirez Ramiro is a criminal illegal alien with charges for vehicular manslaughter and DUI. Now, ICE lodged a detainer. Defense counsel confirmed she was born in Mexico. This part is not in dispute. The paperwork is where the story turns strange and where Reese and Wood focus their attention. The July 24th arrest warrant application stated that the woman being charged had a valid Connecticut driver's license with a New Britain address. That information allegedly belonged to a different person, a U.S. citizen from New Britain who shares the same name and birthday. The actual Stamford driver, we are told, has never held a Connecticut license or ID. She had the driver's license with her. Okay. The DMV confirmed it. She's never been registered to vote in Connecticut. The Secretary of State confirmed that. But here's where it gets really, really crazy. Democrats reframe the entire episode as a reckless conservative speculation and misinformation that the Secretary of State, Stephanie Thomas, claimed elected officials never ask questions before announcing answers. The time frame shows otherwise. Republican leaders promptly demanded a public accounting of the records. The suggestion that no one sought verification is a talking point, not a fact. Now, the rest of this is the fact that it came out that the woman registered in New Britain actually voted. But that's the license for the illegal person who was in Danbury who killed the off-duty police officer and his girlfriend. It's been crazy. And the Secretary of State in Connecticut misspoke and started accusing Republicans of jumping to conclusions, and get this, that Ramirez in New Britain had been getting death threats. The governor even echoed that. When the woman in New Britain with the same name and same date of birth, whose driver's license was found on the woman in Danbury, said she's never gotten death threats. And the last thing I saw that Governor Lamont had said was he doesn't know who the reporters were talking about. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. It's a mess. It's a mess here in Connecticut. And hopefully this November we can make some serious changes. Serious changes. Well, now we're going to go on to Vote Notes. Vote Notes, as all of you know, is a longer story that you can read the rest of it when you click on the link online. And this is from USA Today from August 7th, 2026. And the reason I wanted to include this was because it's a continuing story that's going on in Texas between the Republican and Democratic candidates for U.S. Senate. So Texas Senate candidates face voter registration questions. What we know. As the Republican and Democratic candidates in the Texas U.S. Senate race remain virtually tied in a recent poll, recent reporting from the Texas Tribune and ProPublica have called into question whether the candidates violated Texas election laws. The two publications published a joint investigation on July 7th, alleging that Republican Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton had voted in 6 elections in the past 2 years using a former address. And nearly a month later, they reported that another joint story on August 5th, alleging Democrat State Representative James Tallarico voted in 5 elections using his parents' address after buying a home for himself in nearby North Austin, a practice the story alleges may have violated Texas voting laws. Now, it kind of goes on with the two of them and the 2 accusations. And under Texas election laws, voters may temporarily cast ballots using an address where they do not reside, so long as they intend to return. But experts said it's unclear whether Paxton could make such an argument given his ongoing divorce. So we've got Tallarico. Let's see. Paxton also said Tallarico used the same address to commit voter fraud. The Tribune and ProPublica reviewed Tallarico's records and reported that they appear to show otherwise under Texas law. A candidate from the state house must have lived in the district for at least a year before the election. Tallarico announced in October 2021 that he would move back to the area where he grew up after Republicans redrew his district to favor their party. Records his campaign provided to the Texas Tribune and the ProPublica show that Tallarico listed his parents' address on his voter registration, on his driver's license, and with the U.S. Post Office until November 5th, 2021, 3 days before the 1-year cutoff. They also found that he purchased a home in 2022, but did not update his voter registration address until September of 2024, and that he voted in 5 elections during the period using his parents' home. And of course, the USA Today has not independently verified Tribune and ProPublica findings. It's going back and forth with the 2 of them as far as the Texas laws and whether they voted when they shouldn't have. And as everyone knows, Attorney General Paxton is going through a divorce. I don't know. I just thought you'd like to know it's still going on. It hasn't been resolved as of yet. Now we're going to go on to international news. And this is Latvia. And this is from Wikipedia from August 11th, 2026. Now, their electoral system, they have 100 members of the Samia who are elected by open list proportional representation from 5 multi-member constituencies ranging in size from 11 to 38 seats and based on the regions in Latvia, with overseas votes included in the Riga constituency. Seats are allocated using the Santi-Lagu method with a national electoral threshold of 5%. Voters may cast specific votes for candidates on the list for which they have voted. This involves marking a green-colored "for" box opposite the candidate's name to indicate preference, which is positive votes, or marking a red-colored "against" box opposite the candidate's name to indicate disapproval or negative votes. The mark may be a cross, a tick. What's a tick? I don't know what a tick is. Shading or similar indications. Maybe it's a, okay. An unaltered ballot paper may also be placed in the envelope. The number of votes for each candidate is calculated as the number of votes cast for the list, plus the number of positive votes they receive, minus the number of negative votes they receive. Oh, the candidates with the highest total votes fill their party's seats. Now, their votes coming up on October 3rd, 2026. I think that's a little confusing. Okay. So you got people voting against. I mean, I know it's supposed to be the total, so I guess it'll only be a smaller number total when someone is actually elected, as opposed to the ones who aren't electing them. Very odd, but I thought you'd like to know. Latvia does things a little bit differently. So now we're on to the end of the program, which is my final thoughts. Again, my final thoughts are unscripted, although I scatter them throughout the entire program this week. We just want to have fair elections. We want our country to move forward, and most of us are seeing now that there's a bunch of crazies out there. I mean, really, really crazy. Connecticut is kind of used to it, but we are seeing it across the country right now. Now, doesn't anybody on the left know that communism and socialism doesn't work? Doesn't work at all. Yet, these are the people that want your hard-earned money. They want everything that you have. They don't want to work for it. They go after people who have worked in order to have their own wealth. They're always saying, oh, the millionaires have to pay their fair share. Well, there's a lot of millionaires that actually started out with nothing. They worked hard. They came up with an idea. They started a business that employed people, not the socialists and the communists, because we know most of them don't want jobs. They don't want to work. They want your money. They want everything for free. And they want to tell us how bad our country is. Our country has withstood 250 years of scrutiny, 250 years of people sacrificing their lives. So people like me could state my opinions right now. So people like these socialist communists can voice their opinions. But the difference is we don't want the socialist communists to actually be running our country. If you want socialism or communism, go to the countries like Cuba, go to Russia, go somewhere else. Stop saying how horrible our country is. And most of them that are saying it weren't born here. They came over here. A lot of them came over here illegally. And all you're doing is talking trash about the United States. You know what? Get the hell out. You know, that's how most of us feel. Most of us hardworking people that are now seeing our tax dollars have been going to fraud committed by illegals here in the country, continuing to be able to be perpetrated by governors who allow it to happen, who cover it up, who keep saying it's everybody else and blame, blame, blame. And then we look at things like the Democrats. What do you mean you don't want voter ID? Why? Well, we know why. because all the fraudulent people who have been voting for your socialist and communist people and all the ones who have been getting the kickbacks with everything wouldn't be able to get their kickbacks if we actually had people with conscience, people who actually believe in our country. We can disagree, but the fact that it has come this far into seeing people across the United States who may end up getting elected into our House and Senate, and one's running for governors in other states, we can't let that happen. We cannot let it happen. And anybody else who agrees with me out there, you need to do something about it. And you can. You, as an individual, can voice your opinion at the polls. Bring somebody else with you to the polls, preferably someone like-minded. I mean, we cannot allow this to continue. And anytime you see states that are pushing back, that they don't want voter ID, that they want everything to be electronic, they want all this stuff, and they don't want to hear about the 2020 election and all the fraud that has been uncovered. It's incredible. And it's not just on a national level. It's your local board of ed, your planning and zoning, your council people. How many times have you spoken up at a council meeting? Have you had your voice heard? What would you think if somebody who's voting against you is on your council who never should have been there? And I'm telling you, there's a lot of them out there. We need same day, in-person, hand-counted paper ballots. That is the only way we can have fair elections. We need to make sure that every illegal and undocumented person is not voting in our elections. We're the United States. Yet we know a lot of states are refusing. We know Connecticut is refusing. Connecticut is refusing to run our voter rolls through the SAVE system, the Alien ID, to find out which illegals are on Connecticut voter rolls because they cannot afford to have them removed from the voter rolls. That's the problem. So what we've done here at Fight Voter Fraud, we'd love for you to go to our website, fightvoterfraud.org. And we have two different areas with petitions. The first one is for Connecticut. We actually put up the letters when I FOIA'd the Secretary of State concerning the illegals, the response from the attorney, my response back, and then my letter with evidence that has gone down to the Department of Justice, Civil Rights Division, Harmeet Dillon. We also include on that webpage a fact sheet, questions you may have. But please, we want to encourage you to sign the petition for Connecticut. And those who do not live in Connecticut and live in the other 49 states, we also have a petition we've put up with that as well. Please sign the petition not to have illegals on our voter rolls. Well, thank you so much for watching us this week on SYNC-O-WICZ. I'm Linda SYNC-O-WICZ, the founder and CEO of Fight Voter Fraud, who never has an opinion. I can't even say that with a straight face. But thank you for watching us on OBBM Network TV, YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, and all our other social platforms. Thank you, and sign the petition.